Hello there, everybody on UK Crime Book Club. I'm here with Susie Holiday to talk about our latest book, The Substitute. If you could give us a summary of the plot, please, Susie, to start.
Hello. Yep, this is my new book, Substitute. Sorry, that's not in the camera. It's about a woman who answers a door to a very strange man who looks like a door-to-door salesman of some sort. And he is selling insurance to prevent the deaths of your loved ones. So she thinks this is a lot of nonsense and sort of tells him to get lost. And then something happens that makes her change how she thinks about it.
It's a very different book to what a lot of crime readers would be used to, but Last Resort was science fiction as well. So what has made you write science fiction for your last two books?
Well, as you know, I've written lots of different things. I've kind of crossed genres with most of my books. And I just, having a science background, I just always wanted to write something sciencey. And I'm quite interested in sort of almost science kind of stuff, like Black Mirror, sort of near future type science, things that you're not sure might actually be real or not. So in The Last Resort, I used like trackers, and that's not that different to people actually being tracked constantly by their phones or whatever. And then in Substitute, I used sort of real lab science, which I wanted to cover because I used to do that when I was at uni. And I always fancied writing something in that setting. So I kind of built it around that. I knew there was going to be some, whatever was happening had to have a rational explanation, even though some of the details are not necessarily true, or are they?
A lot of the book involves flashbacks to the 80s and stuff. When you were doing that, is the flashback style something that you like to focus on, or is that isn't?
I quite like it because I quite like reading books that have got like two timelines, and the 80s is always a fun part to write about. And I enjoyed doing bits of research because I had to check like the years that I was using, the specific years. I had to check which songs were in the charts and what TV was on and stuff, so that you could just have characters making little references to things. And I had to do a load of trolling through Dallas sites to find exactly what was happening to JR around the time that I wanted to mention it. And it was only for like one casual line, but it was just quite fun to sort of make it as authentic as possible with 80s stuff.
Yeah, because you managed to drip through quite a few 80s years, and I just quite ironic that it's 85 because I was born in 86, so I didn't quite get the Dallas references other than TV things I've been told before. So it's always quite interesting to focus on science and the flashbacks, and I'm just curious as to where the story came from, because it is very different.
Yeah, well, it's sort of the question, like, where do you get your ideas from? I don't know. They just pop into my mad head. But I did read a short story quite a few years ago, maybe 14 or 15, which was based around a traveling salesman, and he was selling something that you can't buy. And it was just that general premise stuck in my head, and I thought that's really interesting. Like, what other kind of things could someone come around to try and sell you, and would you fall for it? Because it's probably an 80s thing as well, but like people did used to come around the doors and sell dusters and stuff out of the suitcase. Yeah. And I just thought, well, what if it wasn't that? What if it was something like really, really important, really life and death situation, and how would you react? Because I think initially you would just think, well, this is complete load of nonsense. But then when the person who's selling it turns out to kind of know things about you, and you start to realize it's not random at all, and there's something behind it, then you're going to be intrigued. So I just kind of wanted to follow the main character, Chrissy, through her sort of realizations of how this might affect her and affect her family. Because what I wanted to do mostly with this book was make it like a real kind of family drama. And it's a young couple with a young child, and she's got a close best friend who's part of the family, and it's just about how something can happen that can start to trigger things. So in that way, it's quite a classic psychological thriller setup, where you sort of trust people that you maybe shouldn't have trusted. But then I wanted to just throw in the completely different science element to give it a completely different spin on the whole genre. So hopefully I did that.
I think you did. Having read your first one, Blackwood, under your other name, I'm just interested as to after why you because you started with a series of 3 and then switched from series to standalone.
Yes, well, it was just a few reasons really. I just wanted to try and do something different, and I really liked the first 3 books, and they were all set in Bankton, which was my little sort of made-up town, and with my sergeant who was in there, and they were standalone stories, but they were set with, there was some characters that were in different books, and he was in all 3 of them, and I quite liked that, but I wanted to do something different. So then I wrote another one, which The Death of December, which was possibly going to be the start of the series, but no one knew at the time, so I had to kind of leave it as a standalone, but with some potential bits that maybe would cover a series if that happened. And then I just decided to write something completely different, and then I wrote a kind of ghost story / psychological thriller crossover, The Lingering. And then I wrote Violet, which was set on the Trans-Siberian Express, about two women who meet and decide to travel together, and terrible things happen. And that was based on a trip that I took, because I went on the Trans-Siberian Express, like 25 years ago now. And I just always wanted to do something with that. No, it wasn't 25 years, I'm not that old. 15 years? I don't know. Anyway, so I did that, and then I thought I really want to do something with science now, so then I had these ideas. I actually had the idea for Substitute first, and that was the one I really wanted to do, because I thought this would link quite well from the psychological thriller type books I'd been writing, and then bring in some science. And then The Last Resort was sort of the second book in the deal that I'd been offered, and the editor at the time said, oh, maybe we should make that the first one, and I hadn't written it yet, so that was very stressful. But then I did that, and that's the one that came out at the end of last year, and then Substitute came out a couple of months ago. So yeah, and then the next one I'm writing now is different again, so I don't know, I think I just seem to be incapable of writing similar books, but they've all got crimes. Someone dies horribly in every single one, so
yeah. The summary for your new one is already online, which is quite unique, really, because normally when you're looking it up, you don't normally get that straight after because as you say, Substitute's only been out over a month on audio, so it's not been out long, and you've already got the line for the next one. So how far in advance do you write books?
Well, I'm still writing that one, so I'm surprised to know that you've read a summary of it, because it's not written yet.
Well, that's on your own website. So.
oh no, sorry. Which one do you mean?
The new one for 2022. There is a summary of it.
Oh yeah, like it literally just like a line, a couple of lines about it. Because the reason I thought you meant it was on Amazon or something, and I was freaked out. No, the reason for that is when I get a new book deal, I have to kind of send them quite a detailed synopsis of the book, before they give me a book deal. So that's why those books are planned. But they're not written yet. So that one will be handed into the editor quite soon, and it'll be out next summer. And then the next one will be written straight afterwards, and it will be out early 23. So yeah, those two are planned out. But I'm sure I'll think of some more things in the meantime. I think of things all the time. It's quite distracting.
How do you manage to do that with your day job as well? Because your day job is very different.
I don't know. When I get into writing modes, I'm just always thinking of ideas. They just always pop into my head. And I've got, I email myself when I come up with a new idea, and I give it a sort of working title, and I put notes in, and then I just reply to that email every time I think about something of that book. So then I end up with a folder full of just like hundreds of different ideas. And sometimes they never get used, but I think it's just when they pop into my head, it's the best way to get them down before they disappear. So I never seem to run out. But if someone tries to ask, someone says, come up with an idea, I can't do it. It's just, they just come to me. I mean, for example, I've just written some notes for an idea from something that happened at the weekend. So it's just when things happen, I'm just inspired. Especially if something a bit shit happens, then I'm definitely inspired.
if you send the email to yourself with a title, title's always your starting point.
Yeah, I'm a bit weird like that. I mean, most authors I speak to say that they don't even know their titles, and quite often they send them to their publishers without a title, and they make the title. But for every single one of my books, I think except one, I'm just looking because I've got some pictures of them behind. The Deaths of December wasn't my title. That was from the publisher, but every other one's been mine. And yeah, they kind of come to me first, and like a few of them have been song titles. So Violet, The Last Resort, Substitute, and Mr. Sandman, my novella, are all from song titles.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if I'm meant to be writing and I'm not, I'll do things like I'll look up song titles and think, what can I write a book on based on that title? You know, it's like I do it both ways round sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you're not that unusual, because I do the same. It's nice to meet someone else that does the same thing, because I'm like, I come up with a title and then I find it really difficult to move away with the plot from the title.
Yeah.
You find the same problem, or?
Yeah, sometimes. I think sometimes I struggle to continue to come up with the idea until I'm fixed on the title. And then if the title, maybe sometimes something happens in the book where it might make me want to change the title, and sometimes that's tricky because then they're sort of joined. But with Substitute, it was 100% always called that, because it exactly fits the plot. And also I really love that song, so it just went with that. And the same with Violet, it really fitted around the song. So those two fitted. The one I had to find, so The Last Resort, I knew what that was about, but I didn't have a title for it, and that's when I had to find one that fit. And I did find that the Eagles song, The Last Resort, that actually fits perfect. But there were already a few books called that, and normally if I see another book's called the same, I won't call it that. But with that one, I kind of had to, because it just fits it perfectly. So it's a little bit annoying, but there's loads of books with the same names generally.
Before we started, you were saying you were going to be talking about that on the Bloody Scotland with The Last Resort. You were going to be talking about that with other authors. What's it like going to be discussing your book and relating it to theirs? Because that must be a bit of a challenge to try and come up with a thing for a whole hour, because I know I've sometimes struggled to come up with a question.
Well, the panel is called And Then There Were Three. So there's three of us who've all written similar books with a sort of Christie theme of And Then There Were None, and done something quite different with them. So there's Callie Taylor, and she'll be talking about Sleep, which is set on an island, and she's got that kind of thing where people start dying. And then Elle Connell, who's previously written Historicon. This is her first contemporary book, and she's got a bunch of girls on a hen night in a remote cottage. No, sorry, it's a little castle, and it starts getting a bit creepy and weird. And then you've got mine, which has got a load of people on an island, and they find out that they're all transmitting through the little trackers that are stuck into their heads their deepest, darkest secrets for everyone else. So all three of them are linked by the sort of Christie elements of them, but I've no idea what they're going to say, and I don't even know if they really think that they are linked to the Christie thing, because the thing is, I haven't actually read And Then There Were None. I know that probably get me thrown out of the crime community, but I was actually going to read it this week, and I don't think I've got time. But what I really liked about the Christie stuff is I've watched the modern adaptations that were on the BBC, the Sarah Phelps ones.
Yeah.
I really like them because they're still set in the time period they're from, but they've got a much more modern twist. Yeah. And that's what I really liked. So that version of And Then There Were None with Charles Dance, I think, was brilliant. And so that's kind of my inspiration is more the TV rather than the books.
When you're writing, are you inspired by TV? Because of course there's the new BBC drama on a submarine at the moment. That's a pretty unique plot place to plot a book, and TV can do things that books can't.
That's a good question. Although that's not unique, because someone else wrote a submarine book before that TV series came out. James Law wrote his submarine series.
Yeah, because I think one of his books was on a debut panel for, I think it was Theakston's or
Yeah, he was, and then he's actually got a series that we coming out with ITV, but I think because of the pandemic they got swapped around, so it's a real shame because I think his is far better than the one that's on now. Although I haven't seen it, I've only heard other people's opinions of it. I'm sure it's great.
I haven't. I've only seen the first couple of episodes myself, so I don't know where it's going. But when I'm looking for new ideas, it come from all sorts of different places.
Yeah, definitely, because I watch a lot of horror films, and I always get little ideas from horror films. Because I think it's quite difficult to write a unique horror now, because you kind of know what's going to happen. So
yeah,
I like watching them as sort of switch off escapism, which sounds odd, but yeah, sometimes I get little ideas from things like that, but just all the time I get ideas from books, TV, everything.
Do you think that might be the reason that you did really well with the short story in the Marjorie Allingham, because you got lots of ideas, and short stories often come from people with loads of different ideas.
I don't know. I think I was just lucky that year that I got shortlisted. I didn't win it, but there's so much competition with short stories, and there's also, I think there should be a much bigger market for short stories. I don't know if you saw, but I talked about this in Harrogate in the summer on a panel, and a lot of people really like them, but they just don't sell in massive amounts. And like now, when people are always rushing around and doing short journeys and things, you'd think it'd make more sense to listen to short stories or to read short stories, but doesn't seem to happen. But yeah, I used to write a lot. I started off writing short stories. I wrote lots and lots and lots of them before I wrote a novel, and I actually found writing a novel really hard because of that, because I was so used to I automatically knew how to structure a story, obviously beginning, middle and end, but I didn't really think about it. It was just the way it happened, and I was able to do that very easily with short stories. But then when it came to expanding something that might have been 1,000 words, 2,000 words to like 80,000 words, it took me a long time to actually do the first one, because I just thought, where do you get all the stuff from to build it and build it and build it? And just realized it's a very different thing. So I always recommend people write short stories, but a lot of people I know don't like writing them because they want to do all the expansion, and they can't do the kind of narrowing it down to just one streamlined little bit of story. So they're very different things, but they're very fun to write. I've got one to write quite soon, actually, for an anthology. So yeah, I was researching that the other day. So it's always nice because you can write them quickly as well, and then you kind of have quite a nice, satisfying end, rather than writing a book which takes months and feels like 100 years.
Yeah, and now that you can go to loads of different places, where do you think you'll end up writing about, like a different country again?
Yeah, well, I've actually got some in my back pocket from previous trips. So before the pandemic, I was in New Zealand visiting my brother, and I have still got a really good idea based there, which I'd really like to write. It's sort of semi-horror, psychological thriller type. Really want to write that. Also, my sister lives in Chile, so I really want to write something set there. And I've probably my favorite country in the world is America, just because I love that there's just each state is so completely different, and there's so many stories, so many different kinds of people, and I would just love to have enough time off work to just do a massive big American road trip and come up with loads of ideas. I'll come back with hundreds if I did something like that. I'd never be able to write all the ideas I've got.
Considering that you've got relatives in different parts of the world, has that made it harder over lockdown to focus on writing with them not being around?
Yeah, it's actually been horrible, because last summer, so the year before last, my sister got married in Chile, but only a small amount of people were able to go, because so then they were planning to come over here to have a big summer wedding, and also my brother was going to bring all of his family over last summer, and so neither of them could make it, so we hadn't seen them. And then also since then, my brother's had another baby, which none of us have seen, and he's one now, and it seems really odd, because I'm very close to my nieces and nephews, and I've always seen them grow up through those early months. So not having any relationship at all with my little nephew is quite sad. So yeah, I think it's been really difficult. And yeah, you get fed up of Zoom chats. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, is it? I was just interested as to whether that online kind of thing would come up with another story, because I think it's Githa Lodge has written a number of things that have started on through Skype or online stuff, and with that kind of thing happening over the recent past, I wonder whether that idea had popped in.
Not really for me, because I know that some people have written things based on lockdown, and some people have written things based on online life, but I don't really feel inspired by those things, because all my inspirations do come from being out and about and talking to people and going different places and being places. So it doesn't really work for me, whereas, the weekend, I was just away for the weekend, and already, I've got ideas from that just by going somewhere different, even within the UK, just sparks things.
When you're trying to manage working with writing, how do you find the time to do that?
I don't know. I've changed. So I do like work for pharmaceutical companies, but it's kind of contract based through my own company. So what I do is I try to work 5 hours a day for them, and I try to do that in the afternoons. So in theory, that should mean I've got the mornings to write, but in theory, it doesn't always work like that, because I kind of get up and I think, I haven't got to go to work for hours, so I'll just kind of do this and that, and and I kind of lose time. So I'm not very good at time management. So what ends up happening is inevitably I will write late at night, and when I do write, I write quite quickly. And the only way that I can write a book is to plan it, because I've tried to write it just with a rough idea, and it's never worked for me. I've always got to a certain point and then just run out of steam. So I like to plan it. It takes a bit of time for me to go back and forth for a while with all the ideas and turn them into a plan. And then that means that if I do open my laptop at 9 o'clock at night, I can probably write a chapter in an hour, and then I've done it. So despite the fact I've wasted all those hours in the morning when I could have done it, I get it done eventually. And I always do seem to be writing to a deadline. Like, even when, doesn't matter how long my deadline is, I would end up writing to the last month of it, because that's just it's the same when in my day job I work like that. It's like, when is something due? 2 weeks time. When do I start it? The day before. It's just that's just the way I am. So I keep trying to change it. Every single book, I get really stressed, and I say, next time I'm not going to do it like this. Next time I'm going to do it so that I write a tiny amount every day, and it'll build up, and then I get to the end and I'll be so happy because I won't be stressed at all. And I can't do it.
Given that you write late at night, does it affect your dreams? And do your dreams come into your writing?
Oh my God, dreams over the last 2 years have just been insane. And I've spoken to quite a few people who've said that. Like, I think the lockdown did stuff to people's brains, just not being able to process your thoughts in the normal way because you're not doing anything or you're not interacting with people in a normal way. So I always have pretty crazy dreams, but yeah, they are very crazy. I mean, I think it's a bit of a cliche to write about dreams because there's been so many like horror films and things like that are about dreams, but some of this stuff, I mean, I think that must be how my subconscious works and how I come up with ideas for books and stuff, because I just have a crazy imagination whether I'm awake or not.
You've mentioned horror. You wrote a horror novella. Is a novella in a different genre easier to write, or is it been harder to switch?
Well, that was fun to write because my early short stories, before I became really crimey, were all horror, and I'd always fancied writing something that's just actual horror. It's not crime at all; it's actual horror. And novella, so that one ended up like 25,000 words, and so that's normally the length of time when I'm writing a novel. When I get to that point and I decide I don't like it anymore, so to end at that point is actually quite nice. So I really want to write more novellas because I really enjoyed it. Because I think you can really, it's almost like taking the best of a short story, which is like a pared down one viewpoint kind of thing, and then just making it a bit longer. So I think I'll definitely do more of those. I think the idea that I had from the weekend might end up in a novella, hopefully.
When you're looking at compiling your ideas, do you discuss it a lot with editors, or do you leave it to yourself? Because for me, I work with multiple people all the time, so I can never keep my ideas to myself.
When I'm drafting, I don't talk to anyone about it at all. And then when it goes to the editor, that's then when they come back with their suggestions and ideas, and then I'll talk through. But usually at that stage, when I've drafted it, I already know the kind of things that I know I need to work on. So I've never really had any surprises from an editor where I've not agreed with them, because they've usually said things I've already got on my own list. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time, they've helped me out of a hole where I've been like, I know I need to do this to make this happen, but I don't know what to do. And then they've said, what about if you do that? And that's a brilliant relationship with an editor when that kind of thing happens. So I love it. There was one book very early on where I didn't have an editor for a while, and I find that quite difficult, because I do like to have, once it's drafted, I do like to have someone to be able to talk to about it. I mean, I've got my agent as well, who's brilliant, and he gives me lots of notes and feedback, and he's really good. But ultimately, you need to have a good editor who gets you and gets the book and knows what you want to do with it, because sometimes you just need someone else to help unlock your brain. But not drafting. I can't show it to anyone. Actually, that's not true. Very early on, usually, if I've got a few chapters and I'm at the point where I'm thinking, am I going to abandon this, or is this going to work? I send it to Steph Brodrib. She's really the only person who's read anything of mine really early. And she just comes back with a basic, yes, it's brilliant, carry on. And that's enough, because I just need someone else to tell me to carry on, because at that point, you just don't know if it's any good or not.
When you're looking at working with people and you get the cover come, how does that process work? Because this cover is very the face is well hidden, and it kind of goes well with the book. Yeah.
Well, the cover, it's been different every time, really. Most times I've been, for the very first book, they asked me for ideas first, and then they came back with some stuff mocked up. And then every place I've been published by has done similar. They kind of said, have you got any ideas? And sometimes things come back that really match what I had in my head. And sometimes things come back that really don't. And the first time I think that happened was with The Lingering. And if Karen's watching this, she'll remember this. She sent me 4 ideas, and they were very, very different from each other. And I really didn't like the one that became the cover. I had the other ones. I had them in order of which ones I liked, and I really didn't like that one. That is inverted building. I thought, I don't like that. But then my husband really liked it, so he decided he would print them all out, and he stuck them up on my office door, so that I had to see them like every day. And every time I saw them, I kept looking at them, and I kept going, you know, I actually like that one. And it took like about 3 days, and then I was like, it has to be that one. I love it. And we even tried kind of playing around with it a little bit to see if there was anything else we could do. Like, we tried putting it around the other way, and just a few different things. And at the end, it was like, I love this. Why did I not like this in the first place? And I think I might have had similar with Violet, but it's. Generally, I've liked them. Like The Last Resort came in, there was only a couple of variations, but I really liked it straight away. And Substitute, the only difference with Substitute we had was the positioning of the squares. So I got a few different versions of it with the stuff, like those little puzzles where you can move the squares. So it was a bit like that. So we had a few different versions where the title was further up and the face was more split and whatever. But the one, I think everyone liked this one first, and I think they just changed something a little bit. I think maybe just coloured it differently or something. But yeah, I really like the concept of it straight away. So I've been really lucky with covers because I've liked them, and I know that a lot of people have issues when they don't like the covers and they get overruled. But I've never really had that, so it's been fun.
when I was doing the research earlier today, I realised how many different publishers you'd work with. Does that allow you to be different with each one, because each publisher will have different ideas and very different way of looking at things?
It's exactly that. It's different visions for things. And, so my first publisher was a small Scottish independent called Black and White. And so my first books were set in Scotland and in a sort of fictionalized version of my hometown. And that all fitted really well there. But then I wanted to do something different and it didn't quite fit their list. So then we said, I'll do something with Hodder. And then when it came to writing the crossover stuff, Karen Sullivan at Orenda was the perfect person for the Lingering, and then Violet as well. So it's just all been that. And then with Thomson Mercer, I wanted to write something a bit more kind of science fiction. And the editor who bought these books, Jack Butler, he was really into that kind of book. So it's just all been, that's how it's worked out, really. And although it's a bit disruptive moving around, but it's just, I think, as I said before, I like to write lots of different things, so it kind of has to just fit the people who can publish it best. So I think that's just the way it's worked out so far. And the Novella was with a small horror publisher who do lots of UK covers for some special edition American horror books and stuff. So they're really well established and really well known within the horror world. So it was quite an honour to work with them on something as well. So yeah, it's just been a bit of a mixture. And every single place I've been, I've had great editors, great covers. So it's been good fun.
Thomas and Mercer are the online, I think, Amazon publishing. Is that a different style to traditional publishing, or is it kind of the same?
No, Amazon operate exactly the same as a traditional publisher, in that your book has to go through an agent to an editor and be submitted, and they pay advances, and they go through the same process of any traditional publisher. The only difference is the only bookshop your book is in is Amazon, because most of the bookshops are not happy to pay a premium to Amazon to sell their books, so which is fair enough.
Yeah. When you're looking around your friends and things, what do you look for in other crime writers' style that you like to read?
Well, I read quite a lot of variety as well. I think that's why I write it as too, because I don't actually read many police procedurals or detective fiction. I like standalone psychological thrillers. I really like stuff with a bit of a horror element to it. I like stuff with unusual premises. I don't know. I like a mixture. I get taken in by a description, or if someone recommends something and they say a couple of words about it that really make it stand out, then I'll be like, oh, I'll look at that. And I download loads of samples on my Kindle, and then I decide if I'm going to get them. And lots of things.
When you moved to where you currently live in, because you mentioned your house in another online interview and things, and the style where you live, does that affect your writing?
Where I live?
Yeah.
Not really, because I work in my office generally, or else I go out and write in a coffee shop sometimes. But yeah, I just have to get on with it, really. So it doesn't really matter where I am. I've written bits of books when I've been in different places. Quite a lot of bits of books have been written in Scotland, because I'm usually there a lot. But last couple of years I haven't been, but normally I'm there a lot. So a lot of books get partially written there. The Last Resort got partially edited in New Zealand, because I happened to be there when that was happening. So yeah, no, not really. Some people say they like to have certain routines and they have to have certain conditions to write. I don't really need that. I can write on my phone. I can write anywhere really if I need to.
Given that, and if you can write anywhere, is there anywhere that you would recommend to people that the most unusual place you've ever written?
Oh God, I don't know. No, I can't think of anywhere really unusual. I've just written in same places everyone has, I'm sure. On the tube, that's quite unusual, maybe.
That must make your chapters a bit quicker when it on the tube and having go.
It makes you miss a stop. That's what it does. Because if you once you get absorbed in something, that's it, isn't it? So then it doesn't really matter if there's people all squeezing around and getting off, and then you're at the end of the line, but you've written the chapter, so it's all right.
Yeah. You've written a book on it based around the train. And you said that you'd been on a holiday, which gave you the idea for that. Do you like to travel a lot? And
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in normal times, yeah. I mean, the last 2 years has been quite a killer because we haven't been able to go anywhere. But prior to that, yeah, I've always done a lot of traveling. Like I did a really big trip that when I did on the Trans-Siberian trip was actually part of a 6-month round the world trip. And then I've had lots of sort of smaller ones, like a month or 3 weeks, whatever. Just like lots of destinations, lots of places, and also just lots of short ones, like so long weekends within this country, within Europe, anywhere I can go really. But it's so weird. Like I thought, how am I going to handle this being locked down, not be able to fly anywhere? But the longer you don't do it, the easier it sort of becomes, and the more normal it is. And now I'm thinking, God, what's it going to be like when I actually do fly somewhere again? So yeah, it's been quite strange.
Yeah, trying to adapt your writing during lockdown has been quite different because I imagine with you working in a lab a lot, you're unable to do it during lockdown the same way.
No, well, I don't actually work in a lab. All my work is computer based. Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't matter where I am. All my stuff is data driven. So yeah, I was working from home before lockdown anyway. But what I've missed more is just interactions with people, because that has affected my writing definitely. Because I just going to coffee shops and things and just having people around and just having life, it definitely changes things. I feel like I'm running on memories now. There's a science idea for you.
So, given that you say influenced by people around you, is there anyone in the books that have said, "Oh, that's me"?
No, definitely not. And there's definitely no one real in any of my books.
Because I've always wondered what the environment would be like if.
I don't think people notice themselves because if you've heard, I don't know if you've heard this before, but if you did want to write about someone, if you change them from a man to a woman or vice versa, then they will never ever recognize themselves. So that's the way to do it. If you want to get revenge on someone that you need to put in a book, then just change them round and you'll never know.
Interesting. Might have to think about doing that. Revenge is quite an interesting idea for a book. Is there any revenge stuff that you've read from other people or things that you? Because I know revenge is quite a big thing in horror. Is it revenge is something you enjoy reading?
Yeah, that's something I watch a lot. Like I think those kind of films where usually a woman gets attacked and then she goes absolutely mental and kills everyone really brutally. Quite like those films. I don't know if they're just a way of like processing bad stuff in your head or something, with someone just completely getting revenge on the worst people. There's really been some themes of revenge in some of my books as well, but so I'm not sure it's something I've really chosen as a main theme. I'm trying to think now. Maybe the damselfly. There was a bit of that in it, but misguided. So yeah, now I'm thinking about revenge ideas.
When you're thinking about TV and stuff that you're saying, we were talking about TV and films, and what do you kind of watch to kind of escape from the world?
I watch EastEnders and Holby City. Those are my escapes from the world, even though they shouldn't be, because EastEnders is generally a lot of people getting quite angry and shouting at each other in London. And then the medical stuff I just really I like for all the relationships. And so like some people get a bit sniffy about watching soaps, but I really like them. And I think soaps are a brilliant way to look at long-term storylines, because those people who write them, they're geniuses. They they have so many characters to remember, to put together, and they've got these huge big story bibles. And then the way that they bring people back that you've forgotten about and merge their story in, and it makes perfect sense. I think that's quite genius. So I think anyone who writes series fiction should watch soaps, because they're definitely the best way. And also, yeah, just generally, I think because they're short as well, I just kind of put them on and I don't have to think about it. Whereas if I'm watching a film or a series, I'm sort of, I want to be engaged. But with the soaps, I can kind of just sit there without thinking too much. So yeah, those are my. I don't like to use the term guilty pleasures, because I think there's nothing guilty about it. They're good.
Yeah. I must admit, I'm quite heavily influenced by medical dramas and that kind of thing myself. And I was a bit frustrated when I realised that Holby City was being cancelled. That's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah, I only found that out recently, and I can't believe they're doing it, but they're keeping Casualty. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same hospital.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've watched in the past that has been cancelled that you want to bring back or try and write yourself?
Oh God, that's a good question. No, I mean, I didn't really watch box sets and things for a long time, because I got frustrated by the fact that they don't end. Like there's like those American things where you think, oh, I'll watch this, it's 6 parts, and then you get to the end and there's like, oh, there's a new season, and then suddenly it's got 25 seasons, and you think, oh my God. So I kind of got put off by that. But on the other side of that, I did start watching something years ago called Flash Forward. I don't know if you saw any of that, but they cancelled it like mid-season. So it didn't make any sense. And it had this big thing that happened, and the whole central mystery was, why has this thing happened? And they cancelled it. But what? But why did it happen? But I think it was actually based on a book, and I managed to find an old copy of the paperback. But it was like one of those ones that you can't read because the writing's like, minuscule. So I don't know what happened to it. I don't know what happened to that. If anyone knows what happens in Flash Forward, you can let me know.
I was really interested in like different ways that you can read things, because you're saying about stuff that you struggle to read. Because I'm reading your book through audio, and of course it's got multiple narrators and stuff. Do you read or listen to your audio books?
I usually listen to bits of them. So I always listen to the sample when it goes up on Audible straight away, and then when I get the CDs, then I usually go and I listen to bits. If it's multiple narrators, I try and listen to a chapter or 2 of each one, but I've never listened to the whole thing. But I did go, when Violet was being recorded by Imogen Church, I went to listen to a bit of the recording. So I went and sat in the studio with her while she was doing it, and she was doing a chapter where she had to put on a Russian accent, and it was just so good. It was like being in a live play, and she was reading my book, and I was just sitting there like, I can't believe this is just so cool. And that book especially has got several different accents in it, and she absolutely nailed every single one of them. So I love audio narrators. A good one can just make a book a billion times better than the actual book.
Yeah, she was brilliant at Russian voices, especially in Watch Her Fall, which is Erin Kelly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That would be really good, yeah. I read that, so I had to just do my own Russian voices in my head.
You said that you're on a panel for Harrogate this year. What was it like with the new festival set up and being out in a car park? Must have been a bit weird.
I actually thought the tent setup was really nice, because I always find the ballroom really, really hot. Because I know it's going to be, because it's an old building and there's so many people crammed into it. So I quite liked the tent setup. it was nice, and I think it was actually less intimidating as well for my first panel. Although it was still, being up there and looking down onto the audience is still quite an intimidating experience, no matter where you are. But I really liked it, and I enjoyed doing the panel. And I thought the whole festival did brilliantly, considering it was the first thing that anyone had gone to for 2 years, and they had to do so much work to make it happen. I thought they did a great job. I hope they keep a lot of those tents in future.
Yeah, because that means they can put more stuff on.
Yeah.
Although I do like the fact that they've only got one event on at one time. I do like that.
Yeah, because the problem with doing events where there's multiple streams, and if you're one of the authors who ends up being up against a massive name, you just feel crushed when you see the program, because you think no one's going to come to my panel. And I've been there, and then I've also had the same issue when I look at a program and I'm thinking, what am I going to see? And it's really difficult, because you might know someone who's on the sort of smaller name panel, but the other panel is, I don't know, Stephen King, for example, in Bloody Scotland next week. So I feel very sorry for the people who are up against him, because even though he's not there in person, being there online is such a big scoop, because he doesn't really do festivals anymore. So him being there chatting to Limerick Barclay is just going to be incredible. I can't wait to watch that.
That'll be amazing. Is there anything you're really looking forward to about being involved in this year's Bloody Scotland?
Just being back there, because obviously missed it last year. It's one of my favourite festivals. It's so fun. I really love that it's the different venues, which is great if you can get about. It's probably not the best place for you trying to get up that hill to the castle, but it is fun though, just to move around a bit. It's very different. I think it's the most different festival.
I must admit, I am going to have to try it one of these
You definitely knew. You just have to get people to help you. It'll be fine. I mean, it's only about that steep.
I mean, I went to university at Lincoln and to cope with steep hill. So
yes, that huge steep hill. Well, yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah. When you went to uni yourself and you did science, what made you want to switch to writing?
Well, I actually wanted to do English when I left school, but then my English teacher sort of talked me out of it, which was nice. So I ended up doing science, but also there's always a big drive to get more women into science. So I think it was kind of a good time to do it. And I was interested in doing biology, and I ended up doing microbiology and biotechnology, which is very interesting now, because I've studied stuff about pandemics. And I remember thinking, like, that's fine. I'll never have to live through anything like that. And so I did that, and then I've been working in the sort of computer side of it, analysing clinical trial data for about over 20 years now. But I just decided I wanted to write. So it's one of those trips when I was away that I decided I would just start, and then I just played around with it, did some shorter stories, and then just kept going.
There's a couple of comments along the side. So sorry if they're not questions, but I can see that there's a couple of Facebook users. Can you see them?
Yes, I can see them. Yep.
Yeah. Would you mind reading them out for the?
Yeah. So we've got Susie. You've written many books, and through UKCBC, I am being introduced to your work. With that in mind, how long does it take from first draft, editor opinion, and eventually being in the bookshop? From Andrew. Well, it varies. I mean, so this one now, the one I'm writing right now, I got the contract for that in January or February. I'm handing it in a few weeks' time. The edits will then take about 6 weeks in total, because you can do one big edit and a few little back and forth copy edits and stuff, and then it'll be out I think July. It was June, but it will probably be July. So that's like nearly a year and a half, but it doesn't always take that long, because I mean, when I wrote Violet, that was the second book in a contract. I wrote that in about 3 months, and it came out 4 or 5 months later. So it just depends. Not long enough is the answer. And then another question, I think also from Andrew, as a novella is a short story, how many chapters are there? I'll have a guess at 20, am I correct? it depends how long your chapters are. The novella that I wrote was 25,000 words. They can be up to about 40, and then you're starting to move into short novel territory. I don't know how many chapters was in mine, but 20, probably not a bad guess. That's going to look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the only one I've actually finished is a novella about 20,000 words. I've not got it published yet, but I've always been interested as to how when you decide to stop with something like a novella.
Yeah, but I think that depends on if you plan or not, because if you plan, you know when you're going to stop because you know what the end is. I mean, for quite a few of my books, I've written the end quite early on and then gone in and filled in the gaps because I've known the end. So I think it depends. I mean, if you don't know when to stop, then it possibly isn't a novella. It might be meant to be a novel.
Yeah.
We'll see.
If you already know the end at the start, does it make it easier, or has it been different with other options?
Well, sometimes it changes a little bit. Like, I think generally that it's always this rough ending. Sometimes it's been a very specific ending. Sometimes it's been a rough ending, and then it's changed when I've got to it because something else has happened along the way that's made it turn out differently. So I think it's easier in a way because I know where I'm going. Because I always know where I'm starting. I know what happens in the middle. I know what's happening at the end. It's just all the other bits that are the problem. So yeah, I think it is probably easier. There's another question there, substitute on NetGalley. It's not now because it's published. However, it's only £1 and for another day, I think, on Amazon, in case you can go on there. It's in a special deal, but I think it ends on the 15th.
Well, that's definitely a bargain for anyone that's not read it yet.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you find offers like that do make a difference?
It depends when they happen. So sometimes they do. I also think it's quite difficult now because I think there's a lot of books that go in offers like that. So it means that you're still in a crowded market all the time because people have got a lot of choice over books that are £1 or 99p or 1.99. So it's really difficult. So they need other things to stand out to try and get noticed. So it just depends. I mean, I think things like one-day deals, when they get a lot of promotion, they can do quite well. But in general, I wish there weren't £1 deals, but that's my controversial opinion.
That's fine. We're all entitled to have a controversial opinion. If we all had normal opinions, it would be a boring world, wouldn't it?
That's very true.
Talking about controversial stories and controversial opinions, is there anything that you would like that you've seen out in the world that might end up being a story that somebody else has done controversially that you might look at?
Oh, I don't know. I don't like to share my controversial opinions. I like to have a quiet life. So I don't know. I don't think I'd want to pull one into a story. And I'm always quite in awe of people who take a big issue and write a book about it because they open themselves up to a lot of criticism and they have to be ready to take it. And I don't want to do that. So yeah, not for me. If you want to know my controversial opinions, you'll have to wait till we're offline again.
Yeah. Is there anything you wouldn't write about because you're not comfortable with in that?
I don't know. That's a tough question, I think, because I think there's some things that I haven't even thought about writing about. So I think that means I wouldn't write them, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't write.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't write anything with child abuse or anything like that because it's just not something I would be comfortable writing or reading. But I think everything else, I don't know. It kind of depends on the story. I don't really write ultra violence or anything like that. I just don't think you need to. Like, it's the kind of thing that if I watch a film that's really violent, I don't really watch it. I do turn my head away. I'd rather hear the noise of someone being hit on the head with a spade than actually see it, because I don't think you need to see it. I think you can do enough. So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to say I have nothing is really off limits, but nothing's really come up yet that I've suddenly thought, no, I can't write that.
With that being the case, if you'd rather hear stuff, with Last Resort, it was coming from someone's brain. So how did that kind of manifest itself? Because it's kind of like similar, I suppose.
Yes, because they're transmitting stuff that then has to be described to the other people, which is quite difficult in book form. See, The Last Resort would be perfect in a film because they would just show you the projections that were happening. So in my mind, that's kind of how I was trying to write it.
Yeah.
But the actual bit of it was, yeah, I mean, I always kind of pull away, you know, like that thing about writing sex scenes, like you close the door. Although I have written a few sex scenes, but it's a bit like that. I'm kind of like, I pull away at the point where you just don't get you get enough to know what's happened without the absolute brutal detail of it.
That's a really interesting thing to end on, and thank you very much, and hope that everyone is enjoying the Bloody Scotland stuff we've had on this week, because following this is the final debut people that have been nominated for the debut McIlvenney, and next week I'll be interviewing the winner of the debut and the winner of the McIlvenney, so please tune in. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm just going to close it down now. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.